And welcome to Road Less Travel. This is Paul Honor, Brian Carmen, and our very, very special guest tonight, Luke Easter. And we're getting really excited about hearing what Luke has to say, and about some really exciting stuff going on in his life and career right now. So we'll be digging into that deeply. Brian, how you doing?
I'm getting better.
Yeah, last week was the flu show, so this week is the Getting Better show.
The Getting Better show.
Did you want to share some music today, Bri?
Right after I share this link.
Okay.
It is shared.
All right. So what do you got for music today?
Well, like usual, we do 3. And I'll start off with, this is a remake. Well, I got to silence this thing. I can hear an echo. There we go. Back to the Rock, Petra.
Nice.
It's got some good classic tunes on it. And it's got Greg X Voles singing on it.
Okay.
So I like that. And then I don't know if there's a lot of Flyleaf fans out there, and I don't remember how to say this, but it's Pentatonic Tonia, whatever. But it's Lacey Stern's second album. I just love her vocals. She's so passionate.
She has a great voice.
And then on the other shows, I shared my Bloodgood experience with that Bloodgood White Cross concert, the last one before Bloodgood broke up. And I forgot that I had purchased this at the show.
Oh, excellent.
I never had it, and I got the band autographed it.
Sweet.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It takes me about, I don't know, it's about 4 or 5 hours from there. So it was a good drive home, just jamming some tunes.
Yeah, it's a good 6-hour drive for me. So, yeah. And so today I've got a band called Exodus. They were around the late 70s. They were kind of a hard rock, light metal sounding band. And this is their anthology album. It's everything they did between, I think, 76 and 78. And just really, I never heard of these guys. And I came across them in a bargain bin type of thing. And so then I ordered Anthology 2, and it's really good stuff. I mean, really good, groundbreaking Christian hard rock that a lot of people never got to hear of. And then these guys here, I think these guys played Immortal this past year, Weapons of God. Some good friends of mine, love their sound, great message, great music, and just great people. So
who's their record label?
Their record label is Rocks.
That's what I thought.
By the way, yes.
I knew they were with us on that label.
Yeah, they're with you guys on Rocks. Cool. And they're part of Darth Plummer Productions. So that's a really good album. And I'm ashamed to say that I've just finally got a copy of Calamity Kills this week. And I've probably listened to it 5 or 6 times through in a matter of 3 days. And I can't get enough of it. Just really, really good stuff. Yeah, it really is. So Jamie Rowe from Guardian, his new project, or not so new project, new for me, but really, really good stuff. So
what kind of music would you categorize that? Because I've only heard like 1 or 2.
It's hard rock. And in fact, funny, the last song on it, the song Amen, is very reminiscent to me of the last song on your last album, Luke, the Pop Disaster, the Sleep song. And it's got the same kind of a feel to it for me. So, but the rest of the record is very hard, pretty hard rock. So very good. Yeah, it's a good one. So that's mine. And Luke, did you want to share with us 3 things that I know you told me what you're listening to, and for good reason. So you want to share with us?
I've primarily been listening to a lot of Tourniquet to get ready for the Sweden gig and the gig in June up at the BMI Center. And when I'm not listening to that, I've been listening to the first 2 Vengeance Rising records a lot, because I'm trying to learn all of those songs, because I'll be singing for them at Immortal Fest in July. But aside from that, for the last week, I've been listening to the new Dream Theater, Parasomnia, a lot. It's a great album. Russ Taff just put out a record recently called Cover Story, and I think it's called Cover Story. Hold on, I have it in front of me. Yeah, Cover Story, Russ Taff.
Nice.
Russ has been one of my favorite singers for as long as I can remember. He's been through a lot. His voice is not the same as it was when he was in his prime, but it's still got so much character and so much expression and emotion. And him and Steve Taylor and John Mark Painter put together a really great collection of cover songs that kind of covers the arc of his story. And awesome. It was a Kickstarter project, but I think it's in a general release now. But it's a great album. And then just because he's my favorite, I've been listening to it. I listen to a lot of Butch Walker, but if I had to pick a favorite out of his catalog, it would be The Spade. So I've been listening to the Spade by Butch Walker and the Black Widows this past week.
Excellent. Okay, Daniel popped in and said hello. It's my son Daniel, and he's joined us.
Hey, Daniel.
So he's excited to see Daniel. Hey, buddy. Without further ado, I want to introduce you formally and properly to legendary vocalist. In my mind, I've been listening to you for many years. Luke Easter, Tourniquet, and what other stuff you got going on? Tell us what you're into right now. What's happening?
So, I did Tourniquet thing for close to 23 years and did a solo record 2018. Followed that up with a couple singles. I've sat in on a couple tunes with Blamed. I'm on the Calamity Kills record. I did a backing vocal on Anthem. I'm on the latest Brave record with a vocal. And currently working with Gary Lanier and Guy Ritter, calling ourselves STB, and playing all the old Tourniquet songs that people want to hear. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to figure out the logistics for my next solo release. It's all written and ready to go. Just got to figure out who's going to play on it and what the timeline looks like in terms of recording it and getting that all done. It was easier when I lived in California. My partner that I record do all that stuff with is in California, and I just drive across the bay and we work at his house and get it done. But it's a little more challenging because I'm in Nashville now and he's still out there on the coast.
Okay, awesome. So let's go back to Tourniquet. I've got my first experience with you guys was this album, the Crawl to China album, and I just fell in love, and I thought this is amazing, incredible stuff. When did you come in? What was the album that you came in on? Was it Vanishing Lessons?
I joined in '93 for the Pathogenic tour.
Okay.
Guy had left not long after the record came, or it might have been right before the record came out. They had the tour all booked, and I officially joined June 1st of '93, and we played our first show, I want to say the 11th in Oklahoma, and did that until December of 2015.
Fantastic. And so origin story, how did you get to Tourniquet? What were you doing before that? What was kind of your faith journey leading you into Christian music? How did that all play out for you?
I grew up in church. I've been listening to Christian music as long as I've, listened to music. Started branching out more in like middle school, high school, and listening to, a lot of stuff, Rat, Motley, and Def Leppard, and all that kind of stuff. Grew up in the Bay Area, so you had to like Metallica. Wound up in high school, I played in a garage band with some friends, and pivoted from that to my first singing gig was in a band when I was about 19, and it kind of ran its course, and I decided I should try and figure out if I was good enough to go pro or cut my hair and go to school, and wound up in Tourniquet. And a lot of that came about. I knew I wanted to try and get an audition with somebody Tourniquet honestly never crossed my mind. I didn't realize I could sing metal until I was in Tourniquet. But Brian Gray from The Blamed, I've known him since I was 19, 20 years old. He played in another Bay Area band. They were more of a punk thing. My band was more like a hard rock AOR kind of thing. But we would play shows together every now and then. He was in a band called Rocks and Pink Cement. And he found out that I was trying to, find a band to try out for. And he's like, you should try out for Tourniquet. I'm like, dude, you're insane. I don't sing like that. He's like, no, you could totally do it. Here's Victor's number. Call him. So I called up Victor, and Victor told me where to send the tape. And so, for all of you young people out there who might not know, a tape is what we used to have to put music and stuff on. Could not email files, so I had to, snail mail a tape to LA. And a couple weeks after that, I got the call to come down and audition. And the day after my audition, a couple hours after I got home in the Bay Area, I got a phone call that I was in and that I needed to be back down there end of the week. And a week after that, we were on tour.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah.
So how old were you when that happened?
I just turned 22.
So that's like life-changing, like blow your mind kind of stuff, right?
Kind of, yeah. And I mean, I've been singing since I was a kid. I started kindergarten when I was 4. So I was like singing in chapel and stuff when I was, 4. But it wasn't really until, later, like late high school years that I was like, I think I might want to do this band thing and sing in a band. Before that, I was just like a really horrible bass player. But you work at it and you hope that you have a shot. But it was a little surreal because I know other people that worked a lot harder and that arguably were a lot better singers than me that never made it out of local bands. And then I sang in one band and then went to making records and touring and stuff. So it was cool. It was a little overwhelming at times, wrapping your head around it, but yeah, it was good.
Awesome.
You just never know what God's going to do to an obedient heart,
True. And that's the goal, is to, be in that headspace, in that place, that when the opportunity comes that you're ready for it.
Exactly.
So that's all. And so 23 years, you said that you were.
Yep. Just short of 23 years.
So that's an amazing career. And how many albums did you guys do?
You put me on the spot.
I'm sorry, I should have just counted because I have them all.
Vanishing Lessons,
Call to China,
Acoustic Archives, Call to China, Microscopic, Moth, Antiseptic. So 7 records, and plus collected works, and Carry the Wounded, and
love that song.
Projects, and
a
lot of stuff.
So that's an incredible career there. And then you came out with this unaptly named, because this was anything but a disaster. I mean, the pop disaster. This was super anticipated. I was really excited about it when I heard that this was coming out, and I got it, and it was I guess you want to say it's pop, but to me it was more of a rock album and more AOR kind of a thing. So you want to talk about the genesis of that and where that came in, how that came through?
I'd never written a lot by myself. I'm not a good instrumentalist. I don't play guitar well. I don't play bass well. I can't play keyboards at all. And so I had always written with people. When I was in the first band I sang for, the guitar player and I would write everything. He'd give me riffs, and I'd either write over exactly what he gave me, or I'd chop his riffs up with him and say, well, this is a verse, this is a chorus. What do you think? And then write the songs. And then when I joined Tourniquet, I didn't write on Vanishing Lessons, but then Aaron and I tag teamed on the Crawl to China album. So that was kind of how I'd always done stuff. And then probably around 2006, I did a demo project with a guy called Atma Anur. He was kind of the house drummer for Shrapnel Records for a lot of years. Played with Cacophony. He did a short stint with Journey, and I knew him from church, ironically. And he's like, "Hey, I'm doing this demo with these guys. You want to sing on it?" I'm like, "Sure." And so he sends me a track, and there's no lyric or melody. There's just the music bed. So then I had to write that, and it was the first time I branched out of Tourniquet doing anything, and it worked. We talked to some labels. There was some people interested, and just nothing came of it. So after that, I started trying to write more, and my very close friend, my brother in a lot of ways, Chris, known him since high school. He actually turned me on to Tourniquet initially. We started demoing stuff at his house, and so I had a handful of songs that I'd written. None of them were metal, and honestly, to me, it didn't make sense if I was going to do a side thing to do a metal record, because I was already making metal records. That's no fun. And honestly, it's more of a stretch for me musically to lean into that as a writer. I can sing it all day long, but structurally and melodically, my head works in more of a pop way. It's more about the vocal. It's more about the hook. It's less about being super heavy or whatever. So when I parted ways with Tourniquet, Chris was like, I was listening back to some of those demos, and I think these are really solid. I think we should work them up, and then write a couple more, and let's see what happens. And so that's what I did. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't really some grand design in terms of I'm going to write a pop record, but it was at the same time, once I decided, yes, we're going to do this, I set some ground rules for how we were going to approach the project. And one of them was I was trying to keep songs within 3 minutes, because in Tourniquet you could write as long as you wanted. I wasn't setting the length of the songs per se, but even the ones that I wrote, there was more room to kind of noodle. So I wanted to keep everything really tight and compact and really structured. I didn't want it to be metal at all, and anything that sounded like Tourniquet was no, we aren't doing that. I've been there, done that. Don't need to do that on the project. So then, as it starts coming together, I liked it, and Chris liked it. I was afraid people were going to hate it. So I decided to call it the Pop Disaster, because I figured that if everybody hated it, it's right there in the title. Say what you want. You can't say anything any worse than I did. But fortunately, people liked it. It found an audience. It connected with people. I wish it had a broader impact. But I think for indie record with no real marketing and no real push, it did well, and I'm proud of it. I think it could go toe to toe with records that cost a lot more money to make, and yeah, I'm proud of it. I think it's a solid record.
Yeah,
so you have a second one coming out now, you said, or something that you already have written?
I have a second one written. It's figuring out the logistics of who's going to play on it, how I'm going to pay for it, and just a lot of it just comes down to scheduling. Chris travels a lot for work. I live on the other side of the country from him now, so it's not as easy as calling him up going, "Hey, I have a song, can I come overnight?" But it is, I mean, I'm set up here. I can record vocals and stuff. I do stuff for people at home, but for my stuff, Chris and I need to be in the room together. Partly it's just easier to work, but also, I'll come in with, what I think it's a finished song, but he's the magic. He's the secret sauce, Hey,
I got the same stuff going on with my drummer, John Machma.
Okay.
We got to be together because it's just things happen. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, we could make it work long distance, but it wouldn't be as good as it could be. Whether it's great or whatever, that's up to whoever listens to it. But just in terms of our standards for the work, it's only going to work if we're in the room together and we can just, shut the world out and just, chase it down until we're happy with it.
Luke, it is important that the so-called fans enjoy it, but for me as an artist, like I'm hearing you say a lot, you got to make sure you keep it true to who you are and whoever's working with you, and you got to do it for the Lord, and He'll take care of all the rest of that stuff.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the intent needs to be pure, but just from the artistic side, anybody who says that they're making a record for their fans either needs to stop, because you're not making art, you're making product. Or again, that's probably a little harsh. The approach is different. I mean, if you're doing straight pop and it's just all about coming up with a hook over somebody's loop, okay, that's one thing. And not like trying to elevate my stuff. I'm creating art. I don't mean it that way, but
you are.
But at the end of the day, it needs to be creatively satisfying. If you're not happy with what you've done, there's no point in putting it out.
Exactly.
The audience, the listener, needs to be a consideration, but can't be the consideration.
Right.
Now, if you go too far one way or the other and make something that's just completely unlistenable, you can be proud of that. You can stand by that and go, no, that's what I wanted to do. And yes, it failed spectacularly, but it's what I wanted to do. But in my mind, it's finding that balance of, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm trying to say. This is where my head is at sonically right now. And so that's what I want to chase down. But I also need to keep in mind that I've got this body of work that I'm known for.
Yep. I was just going to mention that.
Up to, and I need to make sure that that there's enough fan service in what I'm doing, that even if it's different than what I've done, they're going to come along with me.
Yep.
I'm more than just I may only be a metal singer. I don't know, but musically there's so much more that I listen to and like and want to try to do that isn't metal, and it wouldn't be fun to just do metal songs all the time. Metal's cool. Metal is fun. It's in a lot of ways. I filled in with Reign of Glory for Immortal Fest a couple years back, and it was fun. But as nice as it was to be back on stage after a couple years, all the things that I would do in a metal show don't work playing that kind of music. So in a lot of ways, it was like learning how to perform all over again in real time, because all of the gimmicks that I would do in a Tourniquet show aren't going to work in a Reign of Glory show. So it's different flavors. It's different
we've
colors.
got some comments that I wanted to get to, but you brought up Reign of Glory, so I want to touch on that first real quick, because I was at that show. And when that album first came out and it was the return of Kyle Basari, it was like this buzz going through the music community, the fan community. And then it came out and it was different. It wasn't what we were expecting. Kyle said he had to relearn how to sing and everything to do the album. And then he dropped out just before Immortal Fest, and you stepped in, and I was super excited to see you on stage. But then as I'm listening to you vocalize these songs, I'm thinking, I kind of like this better than the recordings.
Thank you.
And and then what you said the first time you guys practiced it was at sound check?
Yeah, we didn't have a rehearsal.
That was unbelievable. So for you to step into that at the last minute, it's so to speak, zero rehearsal, pick up those songs and belt them out the way that you did. That was so impressive to me. And when you at the end of that set, you said "We Are Reign of Glory," and I was like, really? Is this going to be the new lineup? And I was really excited. And I think I sent you a message and on Facebook.
For that night, we were Reign of Glory.
That right, you were Reign of Glory. And I do know they have a new vocalist and are working on a new album. Very exciting. Looking forward to that. But that I just wanted to say before I go to the comments, that whole performance blew me away, and I was man, I like this better than the way it was recorded. So yeah, I mean that was just phenomenal for me.
It was fun. When an OG like Roger Dale Martin pings you out of the blue. I mean, I don't even know how he got my number, but he's like, "Hey, we have this show. We're not sure if Robin's going to be able to make it. Could you fill in?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay." It's flattering, but it's also it's intimidating because I mean it was him and Jim Chaffin, and Nick is really good too. I wasn't familiar with his work before that, but definitely knew who Roger and Jim were.
Yeah.
So it's not something you take lightly, but I did it like I do everything else musically, try to give it 101% and honor the songs and be respectful of what Robin had created for the album and make it work. So thank you for the kind words. That's nice to hear.
Yeah, I was super excited that night, and it was really amazing. Daniel wants to know what your favorite, I guess, Tourniquet album was to work on or to perform.
To perform, probably my favorite songs to perform. We weren't doing it at all for a while by the end of my time in the band, but I always liked doing Phantom Limb. It was fun to play. White Knuckling the Rosary was always a lot of fun. Tomb of Gilgamesh was always went down well live. In terms of albums, I would say production-wise, Antiseptic. Other than that, I can't really say I have a favorite. I mean, they all have their high points and low points, and they all have good, good and bad memories attached to them. It's, I'm proud of the work that we did. So I couldn't say which one was a favorite.
Well, Daniel grew up with me just wearing out Crawl to China. So that's probably the one he's most familiar with because I just couldn't get enough of that for some reason. I just loved it. Josh chimed in. Hey, guys. Hey, Josh, welcome.
Josh.
My wife, Chrissy's watching. She said, hello, love your music and love the show. So she also was exposed to Tourniquet a lot from me and playing it in the house. And Josh says he enjoyed it. And he also loves the track that you did with Jamie on the Calamity Kills album.
Thank you.
And this he segues perfectly into the next questions. He's very interested in hearing your take on Vengeance. So talk about that a little bit. How'd that come about? What's going on with that? And is it going to be just Immortal, or is there more than that coming?
At this point, it's just Immortal. I look at it this way: if I can sing on a Deliverance record or a Deliverance show, then I get the trifecta. I've sung for the big, 3 of Christian metal at that point. But I live in Nashville. My wife and I go to the Sanctuary Gathering pretty much every month. So I'm friends or friendly with a lot of that scene. I'd already played with Roger Dale. Same thing. I was just sitting at home one night and I got a text from Glenn, do you think you could pull off the Vengeance stuff? And, I didn't didn't think twice and just said, yeah, sure. He's like, cool. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, what? So, yeah, I made it clear, I don't sound like Martinez. I'm not going to do it like Martinez, but if you guys are cool with that, I'm willing to give it a shot. I still have no idea how it's going to sound. I mean, I've been focusing more on the Tourniquet set because, that's coming up in a month. But I'm listening to the first two Vengeance records and trying to wrap my head around how to do it. Again, it'll be different, but it'll be fun. I think it's going to work. And again, it's cool playing with people that, that I respect and admire and that to varying degrees I'm friends with. So there's a comfort in that, in terms of just, it's not like showing up for a new job and worrying that you're going to screw it up and get fired on the spot. It's more of like, we're doing this together because we're friends and it'll be fun and we'll see what happens from there. But yeah, at this point, it's just a one-off, and I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be cool.
What is your favorite place that you've ever played, like arena or show, whatever, like the building itself, for sound, lights, all that kind of stuff?
Probably the best place, my favorite place ever that we played is in Eindhoven, Holland, and it's a big soccer pitch, an outdoor festival thing called Flavo, and they don't do it anymore now, but it was like tens of thousands of people and big European festival stage, and they were more of a pop fest. So when they would have us there, they only had us twice, and both times they seemed a little shell shocked because we'd get a decent pit going, and then half the crowd, all of that pit would disappear at the end of the show. The first time we played, they didn't have us back for a few years because they didn't know what to do with us. It was a very tightly produced show, so if you were given an hour, that meant that you technically only had 55 minutes, because the minute you said thank you, good night, they were pushing your backline off and bringing on the next act. And they put us on early on a Friday because they figured nobody'd come out to see this metal band. But they booked us because they kept getting all of these, people saying, bring in Tourniquet, bring in Tourniquet. So all of these people come from all over Europe who normally would not come to Flavo, and they come see us play, and, we play, and it's a, good response. And, we say, thank you, good night. They roll the back line off, and people are pounding on the stage and chanting Tourniquet, 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 wow. Tourniquet. And they wouldn't stop. And so they go out to try and calm the crowd down, and it just got louder. And then the next band came out, and people started pulling up sod, throwing it at the band, and booing and chanting for Tourniquets. And then they came and asked if we would go out and say something and calm them down. And we're like, no, that's your job. We offered to play an extra song and you said no. So this is kind of on you. So, we're good. But it took it was a band called Johnny Q Public, and it took them like three songs for everybody to finally calm down. Their singer spoke at Metal Meltdown in the UK a year or two after that, and somebody that was there told me that when he got up and spoke, he said one of the biggest lessons he'd learned playing in a band, in however many years he'd been doing it, was the biggest lesson he'd learned was, if you play a festival with Tourniquet, play first. So yeah, we played there twice. That was probably the coolest venue, just in terms of, growing up in the 80s. You think of like the Paradise City video from Guns N' Roses. It was literally that kind of vibe. It's just people as far as you can see, not as big, but by the time that the sun's going down, all you can see is just a sea of people, and they're all, you tell them to sing, they sing. You tell them to mosh, they mosh. Whatever. So that was, that one's cool. I guess my second favorite, like as an indoor venue, would probably be, it's another place that's gone now, but the King's Place in Columbus was a really cool venue to play.
Hey, I went to that Cornerstone Festival in Bushnell, Illinois, when Striper first came back. You guys were there. Were you the singer? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. They were pushy like that. From what Ted told me, this is a funny little short story I want to share with you. I was so thirsty, and we had to stop at a what's the name of the restaurant? It was black and white. I can't remember. My grandma used to work at one, but maybe the name will come back because I'm not feeling too good. But went into the men's room. Nothing bad happened, but I looked over to the right, the stall next to me, and it was Ted Kirkpatrick. And I go, hey, you're Ted Kirkpatrick, are you? And he goes, yeah. I go, don't worry, I won't ask to shake your hand.
That's
But
funny.
they push you guys off there too, because you guys only get like an hour, and they're like that. Ted said that
They weren't as, so we only played main stages there once, but even the side stages, you know, they weren't as hardcore. It was not unusual for things to be behind schedule at Cornerstone.
Okay.
But they tried as much as possible, especially
Right.
the main stage, to
Yep.
turn it over quickly. I don't remember ever being pushed out at Cornerstone. We always tried to be very conscious of not overstaying, you know, of only playing our time. Because it's just it's rude, you know. Look, all it takes is one band to push everything back 5 minutes,
Yep.
and by the time you get to the end of, you know, if it's a festival situation like Cornerstone, you know, that 5 minutes that the opening band goes over ends up pushing everything else out 45 minutes by the end. So by the time the
Yeah, and as a
headliner
fan,
comes
you're
on,
looking at the
people are
schedule, and you're
leaving.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
you're looking at the schedule. You want to be there at the right time, at the right tent.
exactly. And you just want to be, you know, you want to be conscious of other people. I mean, you know, you've got the crew, you've got the other bands, you
Yep.
know, they're there for the same thing you are. So, you know, unless the house tells you to play, you know, an extra 10 because somebody else cut into your time, you play until what, you know, and if that means you cut a song or two, you cut a song or two, because your time is gone. You got the next one's coming up. You got to be respectful. So
So Josh wrote in. He said that the DVD of Flavo, he had to get a second copy because he wore out the first one. It was so good.
Flava was a fun show. Yes, I did. I heard that the singer from Johnny Q had passed away. It's very sad. He was a nice guy. We'd connected on social media. We'd communicate intermittently here and there. He was a really nice guy.
Yeah, and I have their album, and it's a pretty solid album. It gets in my rotation from time to time, and it's a good stuff.
They were a good band. I mean, I remember. I mean, that run through Europe was really, really tiring. So I didn't stay for the full set, but I stayed for part of it. And they were a good band. They were a really good band.
Yeah. So on the road, you're obviously a band, you know, you're out there entertaining, but you're a ministry as well. So can you talk a little bit about that aspect of life in Tourniquet, or in other, you know, venues and places and times where you connected with people? Talk about the ministry aspect of playing and being out there.
We were never an altar call band. You know, it's just, it wasn't, and even still, like with STB, if we play somewhere and they say we need you to do an altar call, I'm going to be polite but firm and say that's not what I do.
Right.
I sing in a metal band. I'm not a preacher, you know. But what we've always done is tried to be very clear, whether it was on stage or at the merch table or backstage or wherever, why we're there and who we represent and what our message is. But also we've always tried to be available, you know, whether it's talking one-on-one at the merch table or, you know, talking to crew backstage, or just in general, just being around, even as, you know, the internet and social media and whatever became more prevalent, to just be available. You know, we don't have all the answers. I can't really do anything to make your life any better, but I know who can, and I can point you in that direction. But I mean, putting any more weight on it than that wouldn't be honest. You know, the ministry aspect has always been important, but at the end of the day, I've always tried to be realistic and honest about the fact that I would be in a band, whether it was a Christian band or not, just because that's what I do. You know, it's arguably, it's one of the few things that I'm halfway decent at. But being able to be in a band where I can combine my faith and whatever I'm trying to do creatively, and make it say something more important than, you know, just, you know, some silly love songs or something. That's a bonus. You know, I think having that sense of purpose, whether it's always the driving force or not, but just having that through point through the work, that, you know, this is our purpose, this is our message, this is what we're trying to accomplish. It's good because it keeps you grounded when you start thinking that you're cooler than you are. But it also kind of keeps you focused on what's ahead of you. You know, that it's not about this, it's about that. You know, it's about there's an eternal component to what we're doing, as opposed to, you know, oh, we got to go out and work this record so we can make another record. You know?
Right. Yeah. So, you know, I preach pretty regularly, and I resonate with the idea that you're not an altar call band, because I'm not an altar call preacher. I mean, it's a rare time if I'm preaching and I do an altar call. I mean, if it's an outreach event or something like that, yeah. But for me, the connection comes, and I think that's probably more for you, is, you know, I do the message, it goes out there, I put it out on YouTube or whatever, and then the comments come, or the messages come in from people. Thank you for that. Can you answer this question? So, you know, I get what you're saying, that the ministry takes place kind of behind the scenes, after the fact. And I can be quite honest with you. The music of Tourniquet has ministered to me. You know, I came out of listening to secular music and playing in a garage band in Florida and things like that. And then when I came to the Lord and realized that there's this whole world of Christian lyrics in really good music, Tourniquet was one of the bands that really resonated for me, and in the lyrical content especially spoke to my heart about a lot of stuff as a young believer. And so, you know, maybe you're not doing altar calls and seeing people come down and breaking down before the stage, but as a minister in what you're doing, you're impacting people's lives in ways you may never know this side of heaven. So
it's like we put a lot of, I mean, some more than others, but there's a lot of thought put into, you know, the lyric content and stuff. Because again, I mean, you get one shot to do something, and, you know, so you better make it count, you know. But whether it was, you know, a straight on, you know, biblical, you know, story song, or whether it was an issues based song, we always tried to be thoughtful in terms of making sure that it aligned with what we were saying our values were, and what our, you know, the core ethos needed to be our faith, and be, you know, being scripturally sound, and making sure that what we were saying mattered. And so that, going back to the ministry aspect of it, took a lot of the weight off in terms of having to get up there and preach and whatever between songs, because all you really had to do was intro the song, and the message is there in the song, you know. So ministry, it was definitely a big component, but like I said, it wasn't the primary factor driving us, but it was one of the main things that drove it. It was as important as pretty much everything else in the music.
Yeah, and I think with the content that you guys put out, there's different aspects of ministry. There's the building up of the saints, preparing for works of service. And then there's the evangelical efforts and things like that. And I would look at your guys' music and lyrical content and approach as you're building up the saints. I think your music was for the believer to build them up, to strengthen them so that they can go out and touch lives of other people.
It was edifying them, but also on the flip side of that, I think that our approach musically and arguably the capabilities of the various people that came through that band, especially Ted, was notable enough that we could challenge people outside of the church world, because they might not necessarily want, again, not to knock Stryper, but their music is going to appeal to this demo. There's people that would never listen to Stryper that might give us a shot because we were heavier, we were more technical, or whatever. And then once they got past the drumming or the leads or whatever, realize that, oh, wait a minute, this is a Christian band, and so again, Stryper has been way more successful and way more notorious in a good way than we've ever been. But I think that there's people that we were able to reach that they would never necessarily have had a shot at. And so again, it's that balancing act. It's what Paul say about I try to be all things to all men.
Yeah.
So we just, again, it's not like we were preoccupied and super precious about it, but at the same time, it was always in the back of our heads that we want to be really heavy and we really want to push the envelope and want to try as much as possible not to repeat ourselves. But we also need to make sure that what we're saying and how we're presenting everything is in line with what we believe and with what the word the fits within the boundaries of what's acceptable according to the word. So yeah, I hope I landed that. I don't know. I hope I made the point.
Yeah, I got it. And go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
For me, Tourniquet and other bands like Deliverance and stuff are always a little bit too heavy for my taste. But you guys, Tourniquet was one of those heavy bands that there's just something about the way you guys did your music that kept me coming back. And I tend to go towards Carry the Wounded. And then this one song, and I don't know I'm sorry because I don't know who was in the band at what year, but one of my favorite songs is Healing Waters of the Tigris.
I sang on that.
You did that one?
That record, yeah.
Man, that's a good song. It's really long, but if I'm in like a I don't know, in a somber mood and I want to just get with the Lord, I put headphones on and just play that song. I mean, it's really good. And you guys, what all kind of instruments do you guys use on that album?
Primarily that was Ted's SG through I want to say a boogie. That record, the band at that point was down to just Ted and me. So it was Ted and me, and then Marty Friedman played the bulk of the leads, and then Bruce Franklin from Trouble played leads on a couple other songs. But that album, I mean, guitar, bass, drums, vocals. I think there was a bouzouki on there. Was there cello on that record? I know there was cello on Microscopic and Antiseptic. It just whatever. I mean, it was some of that stuff. It was whatever weirdness Ted had in his head at any given moment. Oh, now it's the such and such part, and Bill and I would be like, "What?" but that record was probably one of the most fun times that I had making a record with Ted.
Well, good. I picked a good one to bring up then.
Yeah. and you mentioned Marty Friedman. That's the same Marty Friedman that played with Megadeth, correct?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
So what was that dynamic like?
I wasn't there for Marty's session.
When
he had played on the Collected Works record, he played on both the new songs on that. So I was there for that session. Marty's just it's surreal watching Marty play, because he plays these really. Marty's one of those people you hear, a couple of notes and you go, that's Marty Friedman playing. It's just, his good choices, the way he bends things, he's just so easily identifiable because his style is just so distinct and so cool. But he makes it look effortless, and even just watching him in a session and he's like, playing and, your jaw's on the floor because it's like, oh my gosh, that's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. And then he just stops. He's like, no, that's crap. I've got a better one. Like, but that was really awesome. No, that was crap. Like, okay. Anytime you're ready, yeah, I'll go. And then he'd play something even more mind blowing on the next go round. It's like, what planet is this guy from? Marty is just, Marty's a once in a lifetime, once in a generation talent. There's a lot of really, really cool, solid guitar players, in the last, 30, 40 years. But out of all of those newer guys, younger guys, quote unquote, I would say that Marty and Betancourt and probably Paul Gilbert are the cream of the crop. Richie Kotzen's really good too, but those three specifically, because they've figured out how to, going back to something we were talking about earlier, how to do something that's creatively satisfying and scratches that itch as a composer, writer, whatever, but also manage to tap into what their audience and what the greater, listening world wants to hear or will listen to. And they can just seemingly just do it effortlessly time and again. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Marty's ridiculous. Love that guy.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. Was he living in Europe or was for a period of time?
He lives in Japan. He's lived in Japan. I want to say like 25 years, 30 years.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Just phenomenal talent. Absolutely. So, that and then the new project with Gary. You want to talk about that a little bit? What's going on with that and what you guys are doing?
At this point, it's just live shows. When Ted first passed away, Gary and I kicked around the idea of trying to do, some kind of, not so much a tribute show, but just kind of get everybody that had ever been through that band in a room and, just, do a show, to kind of give us some closure. And it never got beyond the talking stage, for a lot of reasons. And then last year, probably last January, he called me up. He's like, "What do you think about doing this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do that. That sounds cool." And then he's like, "I'm gonna hit up Guy because I think that it'd be cool if it was all three of us." I'm like, "Yeah, do it." We extended it to everybody, so it wound up being Guy and Gary and me. For a minute, it looked like it might be Victor and Eric, but we couldn't make that work. We offered it to Aaron, and he flat out told us no. And so we can't perform as Tourniquet for a number of reasons. Mm-hmm. I wanted to call it Phantom Limb, but there's already a band out there called Phantom Limb, so we just called it Stop the Bleeding. And we we booked the one show for Immortal, and before we'd even played it, Light the Dark over in Sweden asked if we'd come out in March, and we said yeah. Like the day or two after we played the show at Immortal, the promoter from BMI Center called us up and wanted to know if we would, do a standalone show in June. So we were like, yeah, sure, okay. And we've got a couple other offers that we're considering and trying to figure out if they'll work. But as long for the time being, as long as the three of us want to keep doing it, and we can make it work with everybody's schedules and such, we'll just keep playing STV shows.
Where a special guest wants to ask you a question. Just kidding.
And you guys are doing a set at Immortal again this year?
No, we won't be at Immortal. We'll be at BMI Center with Spoken in June.
Okay. In June.
7th.
Okay. All right. That might be a road trip worth taking for me. For sure.
We get to play a longer set this time. We're headlining. So
yes. So
Sweden is 2 hours. And Ohio in June will be 90 minutes.
Okay.
So,
nice.
So this time they won't cut the PA.
I missed Immortal in 24. I was there for 23, but I missed 24's Immortal. They were just scheduling for me. I couldn't make it up. But this year, I feel like it's a necessity now because of the show we're doing, and we're interviewing a lot of Immortal guys, and it just feels like it's a necessity for me to be there this year. So I'm gonna do everything I can to make at least one of them, if not both. But it's the dynamic there. And did you feel it when there's a dynamic at that festival of brotherhood and sisterhood, and that I haven't experienced other places like I felt it there.
It's almost got like a family reunion kind of vibe.
Yeah.
It's a lot of bands that used to play Cornerstone. It's a lot of people that used to come to Cornerstone, or people and their kids who they would have taken to Cornerstone if that was still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also, kind of the whole sanctuary ethos and vibe is very much, about, it's kind of the motto for Sanctuary. We are metal, we are family.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, it's kind of the mandate for all of it. And Sanctuary isn't like running a show at Immortal, but there's a lot of overlap from Sanctuary, and Sanctuary has a presence there.
Yes.
And so a lot of that carries over as well. But yeah, it's cool. On the band side of things, it's just awesome, seeing people that, I haven't seen play together in ages, playing together, and just, seeing people that, for 5 or 10 years, there's a lot of those people that I would see, at least once a year. You'd run into them somewhere when you were playing, and then, you don't see them for a long, long time, or they pop up on your social media, and you're like, oh, hey, you're alive, and then see them, and it's cool. You get to hang out with your friends. You get to play for people that honestly you've missed playing for, and hopefully they've missed you, and and then just it ripples out from there. It's really cool for all of us that are on stage, and then that just ripples out to everybody in the house. So it's I would say it's a family reunion kind of vibe.
Yeah, and it was really cool because I'm going there, and I got a lot of Facebook friends that I've never met in person,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, oh hey, and it's like everybody's there, and you're getting to meet people for the first time that you've been friends with, for a long time, and it's just the dynamic was just so incredible. And then you leave and come back to real world, and it's like, oh man, I wish I imagine living like that. That's what heaven's going to be like.
Yeah.
When we get to heaven, it's going to be like that, like every day. So,
I felt so bad after last year's Immortal. I met a guy called Ryan Roebuck, and it did not click that Ryan is the guy from Motivik. So we were like chit-chatting and stuff, and it was like a couple weeks later, and somebody mentioned Ryan, and I put it together that, oh wait, that dude is is them, and then I felt bad. I'm like, I'm such a jerk. I didn't ask him about his record. I didn't ask him about how everything's going. We just talked about the show a little bit and, a little bit of small talk and moved on. So, I need to be more mindful of that now that we're playing again,
Stuff happens. I'm sure he's forgiven you.
I'm sure, he seems like he's that guy. He's chill, but it's just one of those things where it's like, everybody tells me how cool he is. And I just completely didn't put together that they are him, so.
Yeah, and I kind of experienced that too, because I wasn't expecting anybody to know who I was. And then, and everyone just kind of excited to see each other in person for the first time. And there were a couple of those meetings where after the fact, I'm like, oh, that's that dude that I was messaging that we were supposed to get together and do something. And I totally blanked on it. So yeah, I get that, man. And so, yeah, I learned I got to be more mindful of that kind of thing too. One of the songs that is like no other that was on Crawl to China is If I Was There. That song is like no other Tourniquet song. Mm-hmm. And I've actually used that song like for communion services and things like that. Were you involved in that production writing of, because I don't think you sang on that one, did you?
No, I sang on that one.
Oh, you did sing on that. Okay, because the vocals are so different too. Yeah. So that song is just like wham, impactful, amazing. And I don't think you guys ever did anything like it before or after. So
no.
What went into that and how'd that make it on? And thank God it did. But how did that make it onto this album that is completely different from anything else?
Ted wrote it, and that was one of the songs that he decided was going to be on that album when we were making that record.
Okay.
We weren't a band that like got in a room together and worked up songs. We were a band that he would go off and write his stuff, and Aaron would write stuff and send it to me, and I would write lyrics for it. And with the exception of Vanishing Lessons, I never had any idea how any of the songs went until I was in the booth. Wow. Even if I wrote it, it'd be like, okay, I know I have a lyric and a melody, and I guess we'll find out when I get there if this is going to actually work, So we don't have like outtakes and, B-sides and unfinished tracks, laying around. I can only think of one unfinished song, and that'd be from the Vanishing Lessons sessions. But yeah, he had this idea, and he had showed it to me, before we tracked it, and then he played all the guitars on that song. And then it was just a matter of the thing I remember most is it's difficult to stay on pitch in that voicing for long periods of time. I can do it, but it's one thing to do it live as opposed to doing it in the studio, because live, if you get a little pitchy on a phrase, it's over and done. You keep moving.
Right.
For recording, it's forever. So that song and the acapella intro on Tomb of Gilgamesh, I love both those songs, but I also have like nightmare fuel from recording those vocals because they were such a challenge. But I mean, If I Was There is a beautiful song. People really seem to love that song. It really connected with people. I would say, just in terms of gospel message and the fact that it's so different than everything that came before it and after it, that it's probably one of my favorite things that Ted wrote.
It just sounds funny if you wouldn't have told me the song before you said that you'd use a Tourniquet song for a communion.
Well, it's funny because I would play that song and I would use it during a communion service, and then people would be like, wow, that is so cool. What else do they have? And I'd be like, nothing like that.
You want to keep your wig in your head and your false teeth in your mouth, don't you, Granny?
He was ecstatic. I forget where somebody performed it somewhere, and they did it with like a small like orchestra. It was in some church that it might have been at Elmbrook or something in Wisconsin. But whoever put together that presentation of that song had to have it charted so that the string players knew what to do. And so they sent Ted a copy of the sheet music, and he was ecstatic. I mean, we write music, but we don't write music. It's not like we're sitting down with, chart paper and writing notes. We're thinking up things in our head and then putting it on tape and going, play this, and so especially because he was so steeped in classical music and loved that that whole vibe, that whole dynamic, to see the chords and the phrasings and everything that he had come up with in his head and picked out on acoustic guitar, charted out there so that anybody that could read could play it. He was all over that. He was so happy when he got a copy of that.
Oh, that's so cool. We do have another comment. This is from Sarah. Came in late. Sorry if you've answered this question already. He has not. What's been a touching moment you had with a fan or someone on the road that made you feel like this is why I'm doing this?
I think it's probably not the answer that you're looking for, Sarah, but I think it's some of the relationships that I built with people over the years. There's people that I've met that, you meet a lot of people when you're playing shows and when you're touring. And for the bulk of them, they just become, and I don't mean this in a dismissive, oh, they don't matter kind of way, but 99% of them are just a blur of all the people that you've met over, the whatever period of time. But every once in a while, somebody, for whatever reason, they stand out, and they make more of an impact. And sometimes it's because you were able to encourage them or bless them in some way when they were in a hard time. And other times it's people that figure out that you're in a bad way, and you're broken in some way or beaten down in some way, and they encourage you. And some of those people wind up becoming really good friends. And there's a handful of those that I've collected over the years, who one of them, I met him in 95, and I would see him, semi-regularly over the years for a couple of years, and then just nothing, because we weren't really working. And we've stayed connected over social media. He started he and his wife have a missionary organization, and they work with widows and orphans in Africa. And Ben is one of my favorite people, and being able to tell people about him and Melody and the work that they do, and having been able to put him in touch with other people over the years, and another really good friend of mine, Roger Smith, being able to connect people like that and watching their friendships develop, but watching that grow into more support to take the gospel and into the lives of people. It's really easy in the States to be like, oh yeah, the gospel, whatever, yeah, sure. Because there's, depending on where we are in the country, there's a church on every corner. But then there's other parts of the world where they don't necessarily have all of the advantages that we do, and they don't have the distractions that we do. And so when somebody's able to be Jesus in terms of showing them love and grace and care, and give them hope and help put them on a path to where, they're secure and safe and somewhat self-sufficient in their world, that's way more rewarding than playing big shows and making records and stuff. So the broader answer is watching things like that happen, but the core of that would be the relationships. You know, I think that's been the most rewarding part of this musical adventure is building quality relationships with really good people who I would not have met otherwise.
Well, Sarah said that was a beautiful answer, not just one moment, but a combination of many. Ben and Roger sound like amazing people. Thank you for sharing. So awesome. Looks like we've run up on our hour. Went really fast.
Yeah.
Where can someone get this if they're so inclined?
It's on all the streaming platforms, or if you want physical product, I have a Bandcamp page, but the best way to get at me for any of that kind of stuff is at lukeeaster.com.
lukeeaster.com. So
That's
check
easy.
it out. If you don't have this and you haven't listened to it, you can stream it, but I encourage you to buy it, because if you want more stuff like this, you got to buy it. You got to pay for it so they can continue to make the music that we want to hear.
For vinyl lovers, I have a limited number of vinyl copies.
Okay, so you can get it on vinyl also. So please check it out. Don't miss it, because you will be missing out if you miss that album. Luke, thanks so much, man. This has been a real treat for me.
Thank you.
I hope I haven't fanboyed too much tonight, but
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we really enjoyed chatting with you. Brian, you got anything you want to say as we close out?
I just hope I didn't annoy you too much with my coughing. I tried not to.
You're
I
fine.
didn't hear you cough.
Does your cat have any more questions?
Yeah, she just jumped up on my lap. I'm like, okay, she wants to be famous.
That's what they do. That's their job.
Yeah.
So anything you want to leave us with tonight, Luke, before we go off air?
I'm shocked that this far into it that people still have any interest and care at all about what I'm doing or you know what any of us are doing. And so thank you. Thanks to you guys for having me on. Thanks to anybody watching this and anybody who supports and loves what we do. Thank you so much. That means the world to me.
Well, thank you for being part of my spiritual journey. I can tell you that for sure.
Thank you. That's huge. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been fun. I'm really glad it worked out to get you on here. So
yeah,
cool. Again, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
All right, and that's episode 22 of Road Less Traveled. And thank you for everybody that participated and joined us in comments. And we'll be putting it up on YouTube and still taking comments. And we're accessible, guys. If you're hurting, if you're in need, if you need prayer, I'm always happy to answer any questions you have about the Bible. So reach out to us, and we'd love to hear from you.
I want a quick shout out to Ray Para from Sacred Warrior. He's watching.
Awesome.
Hey, Ray.
Hey, Ray. We'll talk to you soon, Ray.
All right. So God bless everybody. Thank you again, and good night.